Warning, this video contains strong language and graphic photos. Viewer discretion is advised. Hey y'all, and welcome to Hooked. If you're new here, Hooked is where we will be telling some true crime stories and doing some crochet projects together. And I'm here for you every Wednesday. On today's episode, we will be crocheting some granny squares, which are very versatile. You can pretty much use them in any crochet project. And we'll also be taking a look at the Catherine Woods case. Listen to this. A 50-year-old landlord appears to have killed three of his tenants inside his home in Queens on Tuesday over unpaid rent, according to police. Pay your rent. Just at this point, just pay your rent. It's life or death. Pay your rent. What? What? Catherine Wood had dreams of making it as a dancer on Broadway in New York. She wasn't going to let anything or anyone get in the way of that until Thanksgiving weekend in 2005, when she was found brutally attacked and unresponsive. Granny Square, we will start with the magic ring. We'll wrap around here. Right. And then we will make sure that's straight because we don't want that all tangled up and shit. So we'll chain 3. And then do 2 double crochet through the magic ring. So that chain of 3 will count as that first double crochet. So it'd be an actual chain of, or a cluster of 3, right? Chain 2. Catherine was from Columbus, Ohio, and was a ballet dancer starting at the age of 3. But her love for dance was kind of outshined. I mean, she was the daughter of the Ohio State University marching band director. And me personally, being from Columbus, Ohio, OSU football is sacred. Catherine did appease her dad by playing baritone in middle school, but once she entered high school, she wanted to focus on dancing. Your next color onto there. If you're not adding a different color, then you can just go on to the next thing. Just slip stitch your corners together. So once you get there, you'll chain 3, which will count as the first double crochet. You'll go through the chain space and do a double crochet. And then also again. Then you'll chain 2 and go through that same area or that same chain space with 3 more double crochet. There's the first corner. After high school, Catherine went straight to New York instead of going to college, which is something her parents, Donna and John Wood, wasn't too happy about. But she was ambitious and she loved to dance. And she thought, what better way to get this start than to go into the Big Apple? First double crochet, go through and do 2 more double crochet in that chain space. Then we'll just go to that next chain space, which is a corner, and do 3 double crochet. On the corners, we'll chain two, and then we'll go through and do another three double crochet. Go to that next space, three double crochet. Then we've hit in that next space, we've hit our corner, so we'll do three double crochet. In July of 2002, John and Donna drove their 18-year-old daughter to New York so that she could chase her dreams. And honestly, I couldn't imagine how that felt or how hard that would have been. See, me personally, I would have moved right next door, but sometimes I could be what they call a helicopter parent. See, I don't think people understand that not only as a parent, not only do you have to like do the basics like feeding, housing, clothing, you also have to be like the biggest supporter, the bodyguard and the like therapist. And trust me, as they get older, it only gets harder. I'm living through it right now. I have a 3-year-old daredevil. She's like all over the place. So driving your 18-year-old daughter to New York from Ohio to chase her dreams couldn't have been easy. And John even said, it wasn't easy for us to drop her off there and put her on her own, but we did and she loved it. And if he couldn't stop her from going, he was going to make sure she got there safely. Now, of course, living in New York isn't easy. If you know, then you know. I love visiting there, but to live there would be an absolute no for me. The expenses alone would have me stressed. And that's just what Catherine seen. Not only was she lonely since all of her loved ones were back in Ohio, she seen that living in New York was very expensive. But Catherine was willing to do whatever it took so that she could get her big break on Broadway, even if that meant becoming a stripper. Catherine would often visit home to see family and friends back in Ohio. And on one of these visits, she met David at a pool hall. David was a 20-year-old aspiring rapper selling his CDs outside the pool hall. Do y'all remember when people would sell like their CDs or mixtapes outside of stores? What a time to be alive. I literally don't know what I would do with a CD now. Like, I literally have a CD player nowhere. Literally nowhere. David and Catherine started a relationship fairly quickly. He admired her ambition on how she strived to reach her goals and dreams. He moved in with her in New York, and she was happy she was no longer lonely. But of course, with the stress of bills, things weren't great for long. They would be on and off, but David was still living there. He would even do boyfriend things, like taking her to work and walking her dog, getting her lunch, and stuff like that. So they were together, but not together, but together. Side note, if he's still living with an ex or she's still living with an ex, don't just, you can do better. Just move on along. Just let it go because yeah, they still doing some stuff if they still live together. But again, that's just my little opinion. Just throwing that out there. During this on and off relationship with David, she met and started dating Paul Cortez, who was from the Bronx. Paul was determined to be someone, and at 25, he was a yoga teacher and the lead vocalist in a rock band called Monolith. He also wrote songs for the band in his diary, which would later be used against him in court. And the supposed lyrics in that diary are just, they're different. We'll just say they're different. But just like Catherine, Paul had dreams of being on Broadway. They met in the gym in 2005. By fall, they were secretly dating, even though David and her were still living together. Paul took her to meet his mom, so it seemed Paul thought things were pretty serious. And he even mentioned to his mom that he loved her. But one thing Paul didn't love was her job as a stripper. He urged her to quit many times. He looked at himself as her knight in shining armor, that a saver from the strip club. Like, I'm not laughing at like, I'm uncomfortable. Like, what? Who do you think? Like, who do you think you are? Anyways, what? There was an incident that happened in April while Catherine was at work when someone slipped something in her drink and she became very ill. She said that she left her drink with one of her customers and she came back and started drinking it and ended up getting really sick. Now, I can hear y'all screaming at me through the screen. Why would you leave your drink? Da, 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 da. Well, maybe, guys, I don't know. She was moving too fast or thought it was okay because she'd be right back or whatever. I don't know. Me personally, I would have taken my drink that I had or I would have came back with a new one, but that's just me. Like I said, she probably was just like moving too fast or thought that it'd be okay. Maybe this client was one of her regulars or something. I don't know. You know? I don't know. Catherine ended up calling Paul when she became ill and he took her to the hospital. Paul also thought it would be a good idea to call her parents and tell her what happened. So, without her permission, he searched through her phone while she was in the ER until he could find her dad's number. I have mixed feelings about this. Like, I understand why he did it, but why without her permission? Or why wouldn't you give her the chance to tell her parents what happened or whatever she would have done in that situation? It wasn't his situation or his parents or anything for him to just go. And they don't know about this man. Like, she lives with David. They know nothing about this Paul guy. So he's just taking it upon himself to just go through her phone and search for her dad's number is kind of weird to me. But that's just me. I don't know. Now, Paul did a lot of over exaggerating about Catherine's job to her dad, saying things like she was selling herself for money and that she was on drugs, which isn't true. Stripping to pay bills and selling that thing for some money are two completely, totally different things, to me at least. Of course, Catherine's parents were shocked to hear this, and the first thing her parents did was call Privilege, which was the club that she supposedly worked at. But there was no Catherine that worked there. She went by her stage name, which was Ava. When John was able to finally confront his daughter himself, she denied everything, saying that Paul was crazy. And if that wasn't enough, Paul also called the house mother at the club begging her to make Catherine quit. Now he's going a bit far, doing a bit too much. She broke it off with him. And if you ask his friends, they were still very much involved. But if you ask Catherine's friends, they say that they were only friends and that Paul was just in love with her and wouldn't leave her alone. Once popped up to her apartment and David was there. Pause. Let's just say this. Don't be just popping up at people's apartments, okay? That's not okay. You can't just be popping up at people's homes, especially if you're not in a position to just be popping up at people's homes. If it was me, honey, you just would have been knocking on that door. I wouldn't even act like I wasn't home. I just would have been continuing my everyday life. If I wasn't expecting company and I don't want company, I'm not going to have company. That's That's just that. So, of course, Paul being butthurt by this, he spilled the beans to David, saying he'd been dating Catherine since August of the year before. He'd even hoped Catherine would spend Thanksgiving of 2005 with him and his family. Catherine later denied all of this when confronted by David. There is no possible way that I'd be dating someone for a year, let them meet my parents, and never see where they live. That just don't sit right with me. So I'm confused as to why Paul thought they were so serious. It seems like the only one that took this situationship seriously was Paul. Not to mention, he did all that stuff with calling her dad and calling her job and thought things were going to be back to normal, like she wouldn't be pissed. That's like a red flag to me. So it's safe to say Catherine did not spend Thanksgiving with Paul and his family that year. Thanksgiving weekend, Catherine's throat had been slashed. She'd been brutally attacked, stabbed 20 times, even having stab wounds going through her hand. She had slashes through her neck, damn near decapitating her. She was found in a pool of her own blood by her roommate, David. On November 27th, 2005, David left the apartment to go and get his car while Catherine stayed home to get ready for work. When he returned back to take her to work, she didn't come out. He called her and got no answer, which wasn't like her. He then went up to go and check things out and found Catherine in a pool of her own blood. Now, his 911 call was a little weird, but what's the right reaction to finding someone you love brutally attacked like that? And of course, the boyfriend did it was always the first thought. But David was very cooperative with police, even giving them a timeline. And once they investigated, they found that he was telling the truth. But who, if he didn't do it, did it? If he didn't do it, then who did? David told police about Paul. Now, Paul says he was at home at the time of the murder, but those good old cell phone towers told a different story. Not only was he calling Catherine multiple times before her attack and then just stopped calling her after, he was in the neighborhood. The cell phone towers pinged him in Catherine's actual neighborhood during the attack. There was also a woman who came out with her own story about Paul, how he basically sexually assaulted her. He was taken into police custody, which where they were able to get his fingerprints, and his prints matched a bloody print left at the crime scene at Catherine's apartment. Do y'all know this fool tried to say that it was period blood? Make it make sense. How does that even happen? And how wasn't it like? Why wasn't it cleaned up? There was just too much evidence against Paul, and he ended up getting 25 years to life in the state of New York. Now, I should add that there was hair found in Catherine's hand and it was blonde. Paul had dark hair. David, on the other hand, has blonde hair. I was all Team David until I read that. Like, wait, what? And the time that David left to go pick his car up and come back wasn't a lot of time. So, yeah, I don't know. I felt very strongly that police got it right, but there's so many holes being poked into the story. There's a Paul support group that is avid Paul is innocent. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. It's like it's not it's not as simple as we think because like my biggest thing is where did that hair come from and how? You know? Like what? And that, friends, was the tragic story of Catherine Wood. To see what I'm doing with these granny squares here, you can follow me on Instagram at HookW True Crime, on TikTok at HookW True Crime, or you can join the Facebook group at Hooked with True Crime. I hope you guys have an amazing Thanksgiving. You eat all the good food. Love y'all. Bye.